Good evening to all. Thank you very much for joining. We will start the session. So, I request Dr. B. Anbuthambi, the President of ICT Academy, to deliver the welcome address for today's conclave, Educators Conclave, on preparing post-pandemic graduates.
Thank you, Sarunan, and on behalf of ICT Academy, on behalf of the entire team here, in partnership with Prime 5C, I warmly welcome all of you to this important session, an Educator Conclave on preparing post-pandemic graduates, and also for the launch of the book titled Post-Pandemic Graduate. Today is our World Students' Day, inspired by our People's President, past President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. UN has notified this today as a World Students' Day, and we are very happy to have educators from across India on this special day, in spite of being a public holiday in many states. So, a lot of teachers, those who have joined here, we have principals, chairmen, HODs, and a lot of teachers who have shown interest of coming to this particular session. And the idea is to bring together educators from across India and get a few of the key industry experts to come and talk to all of you on what should be the scenario or what will be the scenario post the pandemic. And specifically, we will have veterans from the industry, from all angles of the industry sector to come and talk to us on give inputs to educators specifically on how we should deal this post-pandemic situation, specific to preparing graduates in this post-pandemic era. So what is going to be different, how we are going to tackle it, and what kind of inputs are there from the industry, etc., are the ones which we will discuss in this entire conclave. And this conclave will witness a keynote address from our chairman, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan. Sir, I welcome you on behalf of ICT Academy and the entire team. And we will have a power panel discussion on preparing post-pandemic graduates. And this will have expert panelists. We are going to have Ms. Rashmi Bansal, who is one of the writer, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. And we have with us Mr. MP Vijay Kumar, the CFO of CV Technology. Sir, welcome you, sir. We have Mr. Sujit Kumar, who is the AVP HR business leader of Infosys Limited and also founder of Martin Foundation. I welcome you on behalf of ICT Academy. And we will have Mr. Narayanan Ramaswamy from KPMG, who is the national leader for education and skill development of KPMG in India. He's just logging in. I welcome him. And this will be moderated by CAV Pattabhiram, one of the renowned author, teacher, and a speaker. And this book today, what we are going to release, is written by Mr. CAV Pattabhiram, and I've co-authored along with him. So with this, let me warmly welcome all the participants for this session. And definitely this panel is one of the very, very elite and expert panel today, I should say. And we are very blessed to have all of them on this auspicious day today, when a lot of us start our education, anything new in education today, specifically in South India. We all start right from making our kids join school today. So it's a very auspicious day, and we are very glad to initiate this particular conclave and the book launch today. So with this, let me straight away request our chairman, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, the chairman of ICT Academy and emeritus vice chairman of Cognizant, to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anbuthambi, and let me add my welcome to all the participants and the panelists, and a special welcome to both Mr. Pattabhiram and Dr. Anbuthambi for having authored the book, put on paper what graduates should be prepared for in this current environment, which is the post-pandemic era that we have all entered. Again, congratulations to the ICT Academy team, Dr. Anbuthambi, and the rest of the team for taking this initiative on this auspicious day of Vijay Dasami, when we all make a new beginning as far as education, training, skill development is concerned. The topic is very, very appropriate. We have gone through almost 2 years of change. It has changed our approach, our attitude, our behavior, not just the behavior and attitude of the students, but also that of parents, that of teachers, that of educators, because we are preparing for something that we were not prepared for earlier. It is something that that struck us suddenly, and we had to get ourselves ready for educating students in this new era. If you look at the past, we always assumed when students or children go through school, the expectation of the parents and everyone is they will be taught. There is a teacher whose job is to teach and the students learn. As we progressively move into colleges, the level of teaching continues, but probably with a little less rigor and greater emphasis on learning by the students themselves. So if it is 100% teaching in schools up to high school, when it comes to colleges, it gradually progresses towards a 70%, a 30% towards the final year. Postgraduate years are more learning, and research is completely on the students' own. They are completely independent. They have to research, they have to study, they have to form the thesis, etc. So that's something that we've always been used to, progressively going from being taught to being asked to learn on our own. Now that model is changed. That model is rapidly changing, where school children are having to learn on their own instead of being taught in an environment they're all familiar with. Increasingly, the focus is on self-learning. Increasingly, the focus is on assisted group learning. And increasingly, the focus is on making content and material available so that students, both at the high school level and in college level, learn on their own rather than being taught. What is the role of teachers in this new environment? That is something that we have to discuss, because the teachers, first of all, will have to be aware of how to encourage students to learn on their own, how to provide them the appropriate guidance so that they learn in the most effective manner, and so on. Let's look at the past, how things have progressed. If our learning on our own is not something new to Indians. It is something that we can be very, very proud of. There are 3 Indians whose name come to mind, all 3 scientists. In the early years between 1910 and 1925, almost 100 years back, we had Sir C.V. Raman, a Nobel laureate, Dr. Satyendranath Bose, a particle physicist who was nominated a number of times for a Nobel Prize but did not make it, and Meghnad Saha, an astrophysicist, again nominated for the Nobel Prize but did not make it. And several other people, E.C.G. Sudarshan was nominated for Nobel Prize, didn't make it, etc. These are scientists, by the way. This is their life and history is documented very well in a documented film called The Quantum Indians. The Quantum Indians, a 1-hour-long program. It's an award-winning program. These are scientists, by the way, the 3 I mentioned, Bose, on whose name bosons came into being, Sir V. Raman, Nobel laureate. They were all from Calcutta. 2 of them passed out of their MSc the same year, securing a joint first rank. And they had very, very limited facilities during that time, 1910 to 1925 or the early 20th century. Not enough researchers, not enough teachers. They learnt on their own. And it's not like today's world where everything, every discovery, every research paper is available immediately globally. It was limited. The printed versions were available only to the limited people. You had to wait for mail to come. And under those circumstances, these are people who learnt on their own, hypothesized, put out their thesis, got them accepted, combined mathematics and science on their own with some limited guidance from the teachers, and made a success and a name for themselves. And not only for themselves, it's for name for India as a country that develops scientists and technologists of the highest order. And it didn't stop there. Those were the most challenging times. There is another book that has got launched recently, written by a journalist from IIT Madras, Ravi Pulakattu, who has written about, the title of the book is Space, Life, Matter. He talks about the journey of scientists and engineers and technologists post-independence, the struggles that they went through, the lack of funds, lack of laboratory facilities, etc. And it is during that period, there were a number of scientists, C.N.R. Rao, C.R. Rao, Govind Swarup, I mean, there are plenty of them that you can name, who produced so many great theses and research papers and findings that we today celebrate India's arrival in the space field, India's arrival in the nuclear field, India's arrival in so many of the other advanced things, that we owe it to them. Again, people who learnt on their own, studied on their own, and made a huge difference. Again, we have plenty of examples for that. And of course, fortunately, we had good institutions in the country, the IITs, the Indian Institute of Science, and institutions like the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which has spawned off so many other research organizations. So we need to bring that back. We need to bring that kind of a culture, that kind of a success, that kind of an environment back for today's bright young children. They have the capability. They have fantastic environment. Today's context, whatever is discovered anywhere else in the world is available immediately to everybody, to the teachers and to the students. And the teachers and the educators can show the way. They have to take the first step in trying to understand what's happening in this world and encourage students to learn on their own in groups with the teachers, assisted learning, instructed learning. So many avenues are available, and make them wholesome individuals, wholesome scientists, wholesome engineers, wholesome technologists, wholesome doctors, and so on. And that's well within the grasp of people like us. And what does that require? It's just some basic attitude, some behavioral changes, some encouragement, and above all, inspiration by the educators, by the teachers, and inspiration through their own work, through the teachers by learning and exhibiting their knowledge and hypothesizing, and inspiring students by showing great examples of the past, some of the past examples that I mentioned about. And the teachers can go through books that I mentioned, like the book that is being launched today, that's written by Pattabhiram and Anbuthambi, and the Space Life Matrix book, and many others that are available. These are books, these are treasure troves for the principals, the teachers, the examiners. Once they understand, they will be able to inspire all the students to make a career of learning, exploiting the knowledge, and learning in an environment that is conducive for each individual in their comfort zone and make a mark in society. That's the whole purpose of education. And that's a responsibility that we have. That responsibility is changed. In some ways, it's become easy because we know the teachers no longer have to come to a classroom and teach the students, but encourage the students to learn. At the same time, the responsibility is double because they have to ensure that the learning happens by showing them good material, good stuff. There is so much that's available on YouTube. I mean, look at the successful organizations like Byju's, which you see every day. It is all encouraging students to experiment and learn. And that is the environment that we are getting into. And the final point that I want to make, having said how people can learn science and technology and economics and mathematics and sociology on their own, the fundamental thing that the book, the post-pandemic graduate book, talks about is the attitude. The attitude that the students show, the attitude that the parents show towards education and learning, and the attitude that the teachers show on encouraging that. That's a very, very important aspect that has been covered in depth in the book by quoting great examples from some of the most successful people. I encourage all of you to read that book and follow some of the advice that has been given. It is very easy reading, very comfortable. You can pick up any chapter and start reading. And finally, encourage the students to learn on their own by providing the right environment, by providing group environment where the cohorts teach each other and learn from each other. And the teachers should feel proud how the students are learning in this new environment, how they are learning without constant coaching and teaching. That's going to be the new world. And I'm very happy that all of you are participating in today's program. the launch of this book and a very interesting panel discussion, I am sure, that is to follow the launch of the book. Thank you very much. Wish you all a very happy Vijay Dasami, happy learning and happy enjoyment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your inspirational words, and definitely, I know your points are very, very vital at this point in time, specifically for the educators to get inspiration from your thoughts. And I know already we have close to 600 educators in, so we are hoping everybody, not only who are participating today, also after this, whoever is going to see this recorded session will get inspiration from your keynote, and definitely we are going to have at another inspirational session in the panel. So with this, now let me request to play a small video about the book before I will be requesting our chairman to unveil the book. So just if you give us a second, I will request our team to play a video about the book, and then followed by the release. Yeah, just to give a small brief before the launch of the book. This book is specific to the college course, and this will be one of the best companion for every college going student. And as termed as a post-pandemic graduate, it will be a good companion for their journey throughout the college. While the students are there right from the first year to fourth year, so with inputs from a lot of experts, across India. So this book will make their college life a real turning point. And this will help students to succeed the most important phase of life, because we strongly believe everybody give focus on schools and then directly on jobs, but the real the turning point will be a college, like most of us know it. and that importance and what they should do right from their first year to final year is what given in this book, and it is going to be a kind of Bible for them. And we are honored to have the first forward written by Sri Suresh Prabhu, who is the former Union Minister of India. He's current member of Rajya Sabha, the government of India. So he's written an inspirational foreword of why students will have to read this book. And we had an opportunity to have the first votes. The entire book was read by senior leaders, including our own chairman, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan. We did have Mr. Arun Jain, the founder, chairman of Intellect, Dr. Virendra Chauhan, who is chairman of NAC, and Professor Achyuta Samanta, who is MP and also a founder and mentor of Kalinga institutions, Professor D.P. Singh, chairman UGC, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who is the Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities, who have written the first words, along with Dr. Prabhakar Kore, chairman of KL University, Bangalore, Dr. Vishwanathan, founder and chancellor of VIT University, Dr. Elizabeth Varghese, the chancellor of Hindustan University here in Chennai, and Dr. Sudha Sheshayan, the vice chancellor from the Tamil Nadu, Dr. MGR Medical University. And internationally, we have Dr. Rajkumar Bhuiya, who is a dean in the University of Melbourne, Australia, and Dr. Sculler, who is head of professional artificial intelligence in Imperial College London. So they've given their first words, and their inputs are also there in this particular book for students to read and get inspiration. So in the making, we had these educators who gave their inputs, and their inputs are also covered as part of the book. So I don't want to go or read out everybody's name. We have close to 12 educators for each chapter. We had ensured we spoke to one of the educators, took their inputs also, because we felt they are the one who are in day-to-day with every college student. So it is better we get their inputs also into the picture. So thank you very much to all the educators. Most of them are principals here who gave us inputs specific to the students. And edit desk was supported by Balaji Swaminathan, Narendra, and Masuk from our team. Thank you, team. And writing desk was supported by Amba Vishnu, Ashwita, Kritika Soundarajan, Meera, Sonika Agarwal, and Sudha Atreya. Thank you very much to the team members in the writing desk. And design and layout of this book was made by Malai Chelvan Nagarajan. And finally, on behalf of myself and Mr. Patabi, I thank every team member of ICT Academy, team member of Prime, the organization of Mr. Patabi, and the team of the Right Order, who is a publisher, formal publisher of this book, and all the mentors and well-wishers for making us launch this important book today. And special thanks to two organizations today. KSR College of Technology, today morning they sent me a message saying they wish to give this as a gift to all their first year students when they come into the college. They said, let me welcome the students with this book. And one another company, in Kerala, Samskar System, Pasha Digital Learning Platform. He was an ex-Cognizant programmer. He started his own learning management system, and he's working with a lot of education institutions and corporates to do online learning. And he said, I'll sponsor 40 books to today's participating educators. If you remember in our bridge conference, we used to do this lucky draw and give away a lot of giveaways. So today we thought, after this event, we will do a kind of lucky draw technologically, and we will give 40 books as part of Samskar sponsored to the participating educators of today. So with this, I thank, and before we move to the panel discussion and I talk about that, let me request our chairman, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, to release the book, unveil the book, and hand it over to the panelists.
Thank you, Anbu, for that nice introduction. I've got the book in hand. Like Anbu said, a well-written book, very comprehensive. It has taken inputs from a number of different people who are all educators, and I wish you all happy reading, and I hope you benefit from this a great deal. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. I'll request all the speakers to hold the book once, so that it will be good to have a Madam. Welcome, Madam Rashmi Bansal. She had some issue joining. And sorry, we were not able to reach the book to Mumbai. However, we will ensure it is coming to you.
Thank you. And congratulations to ICT Academy and all the people who worked on this. Very good work.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to our chairman for launching this book today. And we will move on to the next important and main session of today. No, we do have our final panelist, Mr. Rashmi Bansal, who's also joined the session. And now we are going to witness a panel discussion, a very, very important panel discussion for educators on preparing. How do we prepare the graduates specific to the post-pandemic era? So we have with us now 4 panelists and 1 moderator. And this session is going to be moderated by CAV Pattabhiram, who is a co-author of this book and is a well-reputed author, speaker, and a teacher. So I welcome you, Mr. Pattabhiram. And just a very, very one-liner introduction about the 4 panelists, because all these 4 panelists are well-reputed in this industry and are all are well-known to know most of the audience here. We have with us Madam Rashmi Bansal, who is the writer, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. She's one of the best-selling and renowned author across India, and I'm sure every educator would have gone through her books, which are very, very important for every entrepreneur, or every startup whom you are nurturing, or every student you are trying to inspire are getting benefited out of it. I welcome Madam Rashmi Bansal. And we will have Mr. MP Vijay Kumar, who is the CFO of CFI Technologies, and Mr. MPV is also a Central Council member of the ICAI Institute, and he was a great teacher, and a lot of CAs today have learned from Mr. MP Vijay Kumar, and we are very happy to have you here, sir. And we have with us Mr. Sujit Kumar, again, no introduction needed for this crowd. He's a AVP and HR business leader. More than that, as our chairman mentioned, he's one of the well-reputed social worker of our nation, I should say. As MPV said, we are very, very proud of his association. From day one when we started ICT Academy, Mr. Sujit used to speak in our events. And today, with this larger vision in the Matram Foundation as a founder, we are very glad to have you in this session, sir. And we have with us Mr. Narayanan Ramaswamy, who is the national leader, education and skill development for KPMG in India. And he's again a very important personality in the policy advisory area for government, a lot of state governments or in the central government. He works closely with skill, higher education, and various committees and bodies to ensure the right kind of policy frameworks they do. So with this, I will leave the floor to Mr. Pattabhiram to take forward the panel and give us meaningful insights so that we all go very, very inspired after the event. Over to Mr. Pattabhiram.
Thank you, Anber. Am I audible? Because I had some problem with my...
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. Will you remove the shares?
It's done.
Oh, thank you. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to each one of the panelists here.
Good evening.
It's nice to be here today under circumstances where we obviously see substantial improvement over what had happened in the past. The novel coronavirus, COVID-19, as we have all chosen to call it, destroyed national economies, exposed the fragility of our public healthcare system, brought the giant wheels of our education to a grinding halt. Notwithstanding all that, notwithstanding the fact that this was a 1-in-100-year event, I guess we are slowly limping back to normalcy. Are we really getting back to what people clichédly call the old normal? Or are we getting into what again is a cliched phrase, the new normal? Is a question that I think our panelists will try and answer. The structure of our panel, ladies and gentlemen, would be that each one of our panelists will make brief opening remarks. Maybe they'll speak for about 2 minutes, introduce their ideas, and then we have a set of questions that we would like to ask them. Participants who have turned up here can put your questions in the chat box. I can pick up some of those questions and ask the panelists as well. That's how we will go about with it. We will start with our Central Council member, a highly respected CFO. Anbuthambi referred to him as a teacher of the past. I think all our students will disagree with him. He's been a great teacher of the past, great teacher of the present, great of the future as well. Vijay Kumar, quick opening words from you on the subject.
Thanks, Patabi, and hearty congratulations to you and Dr. Anbuthambi for this wonderful book. I didn't know that I had the option of reading the book before it got launched today. So I had the book along with the wrapper with me to be opened right here. And having opened this, I'm literally awestruck by, of course, knowing you. It wasn't surprising that the book would be of this quality, but it's so well written that I'm tempted to spend my time on reading the book now rather than participate in the panels. But nevertheless, compliments to you. And as far as the quick opening remarks are concerned for the panel, by the way, happy Vijayadashmi to all the participants here and greetings to the fellow panelists. I think, Patabi, as far as the post-pandemic work environment is concerned, I think it's still a little early for us to come to a conclusion on how it would be. I think it's important to be agile, to adapt ourselves to what exactly would be the post-pandemic requirements. I'm saying this for the reason that if you look at the last 12 to 15 months, we have seen organizations say that work from home is the new norm. We have come across organizations who have said that we will downsize our physical offices by about 75%. And we come across the same organizations now talking of bringing back people to offices and things like that. So I think it's still in a discovery phase. While personally, I would like to see the post-pandemic to be somewhere between skill sets required to work at office and out of home. It will be somewhere there. I think we need to be conscious that we're still not final on where we would end up. Some basic things don't change. Foremost among that is what I call as employability. And on employability, and I like the Lakshmi in his opening remarks, he emphasized on it quite a bit. And there is a greater focus on that, which we have experienced during the last 15, 18 months. Personally, in our organization, we have been able to handle everything out of home except the ability of inducting new team members in the company, training them and ensuring that they have the right organization DNA. That's something we have not been able to succeed. We have struggled quite a bit. I think as Lakshmi was mentioning, one of the most important skill sets which will be required is the skill set of self-learning. Of course, even in the past, colleges have laid emphasis on that, but probably much higher emphasis would be required. Second is, we are all familiar with this expression of VUCA. And this is an expression which is as old as maybe 30, 40 years, which initially was used by the US Army. But post the global financial crisis, it became a very common corporate jargon. But many of us never thought that we will actually have to face a situation where we will have this kind of uncertainty along with the other three elements of volatility, complexity, and ambiguity. So this entire 15 months have taught us how to handle uncertainty. So at the college, when the students are getting prepared for the outside world, I think we need to prepare them for handling a uncertain world. In fact, pardon me if I'm sounding a little negative, but I will not be surprised if we have situations where there is a breakdown of the entire IT or digital infrastructure for weeks to come. We have seen that happen in the airlines industry. We have seen that happen for WhatsApp a week back or so, where it was down for about 6-8 hours and the whole world panicked. And businesses will come to a standstill, livelihood will come to a standstill. So I think it's important to develop in the college education, in the students, the ability to handle an uncertain world. That's the second important point I'd like to share. And the last point I'd like to share, Patabi, as part of the opening remarks, there's something applicable with before or after pandemic, it's the same, is the college education's ability to build in the student the ability to work as a team and not as an individual. Unfortunately, our education system in the school is all about individual performance. Even at college, it's to a large extent individual performance. And many people tend to carry this attribute into the organizations. And in organizations, individual performances don't count. It's only the team performance which counts. So that's one important skill set which college education needs to impart in the students. Happy to share further thoughts as we interact in the panel, Patami.
Thank you very much, Vijay. I think that was very well put. Sujit, I've heard a lot about you. I think I've met you only once fleetingly at one of those ICT conferences. We would like to, if possible, hear in your opening remarks as to what is it that you're actually looking forward to in the new set of graduates who come to Infosys to work? Is there going to be a change compared to how you were recruiting in the past? Or are you looking at something completely new now?
Thank you, Patami. So let me start by the most frequently used statement during the pandemic times. Am I audible? If I'm audible, just a thumbs up. It's half the time you speak for 20 minutes and then you realize that you are not audible and participants also remain silent. My heartiest congratulations. It's great to hold a physical book, right, during the pandemic times. My biggest congratulations to both you and Patami sir and Anbu. Brilliantly done. So I couldn't resist the temptation of opening the book. So it took Anbu's permission yesterday to unwrap and see what was there inside. Brilliantly done. I think it's going to, and look at the timing of the book. Just when the colleges are going to open, this book is coming out. It's going to be a big boon to anybody who's going to grab their hands on this copy. So it's like a child being delivered, and writing a book is not a joke. So my heartiest congratulations to you. So I'm just going to make, before just jumping into what are we looking for new graduates, I have a small observation to make. The engineering education, mainly in India, derives a lot of motivation and learning from the IT industry. So some of the changes which happen in the IT industry is inevitable that it's going to catch up in the engineering education sector as well. Take, for example, this work from home. This was one industry which pioneered work from home. And during the last pandemic time in March, when everybody said you have to work from home, it didn't really impact. This was one industry which didn't impact. The infrastructure was ready. Everybody was able to come log in from work. That was not the case for the education sector. From being watched in classroom, suddenly the entire family is sitting and watching your engineering lectures. Right? And it's not easy. Right from the internet to Microsoft Teams, and who on our wildest dream thought Zoom will be a platform that we'll all be clinging on to. So I think my biggest observation that I'm going to make is on the future of work, right? From the place called work was a place where you went all these years. That is getting demolished completely, and the work can happen anywhere. And I think the future holds good, and education can also be like that. You don't really need to go to college to get your education. It can happen anywhere. And I think blended education, blended learning is going to be the way forward. This is one of my biggest observations, and I'm already seeing it happening. For example, if I'm an HR person, I don't think I would have asked this question to a fresh graduate earlier, that have you taken any MOOC courses? Are you part of Khan Academy or Earn Academy or any of these MOOC websites? Today, it is invariable. During the pandemic time, if somebody has not taken up an additional certification, you really treat them like an outcast. You say, boss, you are not there, right? So I think what the way forward, the biggest positive out of this pandemic, well, the lot has been said negative about the pandemic, especially for this industry, it's booming. Because as you might watch right now, Patami sir, this is a time when, for the last 20 years I've been in Infosys, I've never seen attrition like what's happening right now. Right? Across the world, we are calling it the great resignation wave. And what that happens is every IT organization is coming and recruiting in such phenomenal numbers. You just look at the numbers, what TCS, Infosys, Cognizant is going to hire for the next year. I don't think you'll have sufficient engineers in the first place, or even science graduates in the first place. So that's a big positive as far as employability is concerned. The future, I think, will go to an individual who's very high on the learnability quotient, which means your ability to learn new things and your ability to unlearn what you learned yesterday. So that's going to be number one. Number two, As much as it is challenging to get ready students post-pandemic, I think the biggest challenge will be to make our faculty ready to adapt these changes. For example, take with all due respects, now there is a lot of these courses, engineering counseling just got over. And my educators in this panel, I mean, in this audience will understand. There are two groups where people are still struggling to get engineering students, civil engineering and mechanical engineering. Everywhere it is computer science dominated. There is courses like AI and TS. I don't know where we are going to get faculty from. I think the ability for a faculty to reskill themselves, because unless until they reskill themselves and they upskill themselves, it's going to be very difficult to be a role model to the students in the colleges, right? And that way, self-learning is going to be a lot of key. The need to move towards blended learning. You listen to a college lecture, but at the same time, you get professionally certified for few courses through MOOC websites. It's going to be the way forward. And number three, few skills that we are speaking about are going to take a lot more precedence post-pandemic, which is critical thinking. I think gone are the days when you say, okay, I don't need this, but critical thinking is going to come and dominate big time in future. A lot of soft skills that we were talking about communication, emotional intelligence is going to be playing a huge role. Graduates who are tech savvy. Now, there used to be a big statement that we used to make, and it's a fact. In Mysore campus of Infosys, which I normally call as a honeymoon center because it doesn't look like an office in the first place. People used to come, graduates used to come who have never seen computers in their life. And I'm not talking about 30, 40 years back. I'm just talking about as late as 5, 6 years back. A civil engineer who has never written one line of code would walk in, and in 6 months' time, he would come out as a software engineer, writing some brilliant codes. Gone are the days. Now the organization expects you to finish your finishing school in terms of all these courses and certification and come ready. So which means unless and until you're tech savvy, your domain depth is not there, I think such students are going to struggle in a big way. And of course, the last point is on the creativity.
Before you make your last point, can I ask you something? What will happen to your learning center if everybody is work ready?
No, that is going to be used for, that's going to be used a lot for reskilling. So today, one is to get your basic qualification in and come be ready for work. But what's happening in all these IT organizations right now is also about how do I constantly reskill myself. The speed in which that is happening is unbelievable. Now look at the offers that some of the IT organizations are making. There is something like the base offer, which is like at 4 lakhs per annum. But if you have digital skills, you are coming at 5.75. And then there is the same college. One student can get a base offer at 4 lakhs, somebody can get it 6 lakhs, and somebody can get it 8 lakhs. Which TCS very famously said, you can design your own comp package for a fresher. I think those things are happening. I think sooner or later, companies visiting a particular college to hire will be an exercise of the past. And this is purely my personal prediction and not an Infosys prediction. But I think just like your common test that we have, and NASCOM noted this NAC test earlier, I think it's quite possible that I don't care from which college you are from, which part of the country you are from. As long as you're able to crack my test and crack my interview, how does it solve the problem? I mean, I'll be more than happy to recruit people like that. So I think some of these are already in existence. Companies are hiring to hackathons, through competitions and stuff like that. I think if you need to go through large number of hiring, then visiting campus day 1, day 2, day 1 sharing and all this stuff can be things of the past. Right? And the last point that I want to make, definitely today there are organizations which are taking graduates, 12th standard students, getting them ready for employable skills. And I think there are a good number of pilots which is already happening in Tamil Nadu itself. HCL has been doing it. Zoho has been doing it now. And there are Freshworks has started. So, I mean, that is another thing which is catching up. So a lot of interesting trends, but these are my opening remarks.
Thank you very much. I think that was good. I think we are possibly, I don't know whether I'm right, we are possibly seeing maybe in the IT sector, the beginning of the end of colleges. If what Zoho and Freshworks are doing is anything to go by.
I sincerely hope not.
Keep that in your mind. We'll come back after we hear Rashmi Bansal. Rashmi, you are the entrepreneur. You are the one from Mumbai. We would like to hear how Mumbai looks at the way that things are changing.
Thank you. And first of all, congratulations to you, Patabi, and to Dr. Your co-author, Dr.
Anbutambi.
Yeah, for this fabulous book, which is a very relevant topic. Dr. Anbu Thambi, sorry, I'm a little unfamiliar with the name. So I think I just want to start by saying that I was recently asked to write a textbook on entrepreneurship. So I went to the market and I bought 5 textbooks to see what are they teaching. And I was surprised to find that even a subject as practical as entrepreneurship has been made as boring as any other subject in the curriculum. So there is no excitement. There is no feeling of, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't think anyone will read those books and want to become an entrepreneur. So when I speak to students all over the country, I go to give talks regarding my books. I go to give career advice. I find that they're not charged up because we are not giving them the material that can light up their minds. Our teachers are not sort of focused on giving experiential learning, because there is a particular kind of methodology running, which used to be there even when I was in school. So today we have got fancy classrooms, we've got air conditioned schools also, but we don't really have the the light of knowledge which is sparking the child's brain and interest. And there is a new national education policy, but what I ultimately find is whether you're from a very elite school or you're from a government school, everybody wants to just pass one exam, whether it's IIT, JEE or SAT or CAT or anything. And then if I pass that exam, I've made my life. Okay, if I go to Haryana, I go to Jind district, there they want to do bank PO. So like 1,000 students are gathered in the library trying to pass bank PO exam. I asked them that if only 2 of you are going to get into this, it's a competitive exam, everyone cannot. So what about the remaining 998? What are you going to do with your life? So we don't have any answers for these questions. I don't think that the permanent employment with a large company is going to be a thing in future. That's what we've seen even in pandemic, that there's going to be more and more people working as freelancers or contract basis for large companies. So you have to be very self-motivated. You have to take initiative. So whether or not you start your own business employing other people, even if you're self-employed, you have to be very problem solving. You have to take the initiative. Even if you're employed in a large company, you just can't sit back passively and just do the minimum work and get by. So we need students who have a lot of, self-belief, problem solving ability, and also a bit of perseverance, because one issue right now is that students just are not able to stick to any one thing. I agree that you're not going to have the same career your whole life. You're going to maybe do 2 to 3 or 4 different things in your lifetime, but you have to at least stick to something for some time. You can't just leave it after 3 months, do one internship. I have met students who've done 15 internships and still are not sure what they want to do in life, because there is a fear that I might miss out on something better. So somewhere I think what students need from us as teachers, as their seniors, is more of guidance and mentorship to build their self-belief, to realize that each one is unique. So there's no set path. So do whatever you love to do, or find something that's interesting and become an expert in that and give it your best, and don't expect very quick results. So I do not know how this is going to get implemented, but this is what I think is the need of the hour, to be very flexible, learning oriented and practical in your delivery of education.
I think maybe people like you, when you go and talk to colleges, when you keep saying these things, it will start happening from the college perspective itself. I'll come back to all of you a little while from now. I think I've kept Mr. Narayan waiting for just too long. Narayan, 2 things. You come from one of the biggest consulting companies in our country. More importantly, I understand you have been part of the NEP, directly or indirectly. So maybe if you can help us understand as to what in NEP you would like to see happen in post 2021, that would be nice.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Pattabhiram and Dr. Anbuthambi. This is fabulous. I mean, there is this new word that people have coined called unputtable. And this book is one of those unputtable stuff. Like, since the beginning of this conversation, I'm sorry, I've been.
I think it's a little heavy. The book is heavy.
Book is heavy, but book is light in a different sense, sir. I tell you, I am guilty of reading this book when the panel was happening. It's a very bad habit, but I couldn't help it. Honestly, I think this is a great book. And for those who are from Tamil Nadu, there is this Konar notes, which used to be like, very popular during our times for us to read Tamil. And I'll tell you what, the comparison is, this is so easy. This book is so easy to read. And what I found very, very interesting in the very little time that I could go through it is a fantastic book. So sorry, I got into the book rather than what I was supposed to say. So few things that I agree with my co-panelists. I think the world is changing big time, and a national education policy is a reflection of it, right? What in the world is changing and why is it relevant? Many spoke, and I think Rashmi touched upon that very well. There is nothing called permanent job. There is nothing called permanent learning. I think one of the things that the current set of teachers, the current set of educational institutions should do is to teach how to learn rather than teach something specific. I think the graduates of today and tomorrow need this habit of wanting to learn, unlearn, relearn. How do you do that is going to be very important. It's very different from how we are used to teaching in universities. In universities, we are supposed to teach something specific. But I'm saying that specific is going to vanish within 2 years, 3 years, sometimes within months. So what we need to teach is how to learn, and it's going to be a lifelong learning in that sense. I'll add to that what Rashmi said. There is going to be the new coinage called gig workers, and the gig economy is going to give a lot of gig workers. And unfortunately, Mr. Sujit Kumar and people who have seen employees who are lifelong employees are not going to see any more of them. And that is happening. Like he said, the number of attrition that we had in a place like KPMG and Infosys and many of these so-called well-known brands, if it is any testimony, it's because people don't want to do the same thing. And much as we desire, the kids of today and tomorrow definitely are going to be quote-unquote multitasking, even in jobs. So there are people who, when I do my interviews, who say, I don't want to be stuck in one job. So they say, while I'm doing this, I have so many hours. Do you want to do this? I will do that to you. I'll deliver that to you. But don't tell me that I should be wedded to your organization, however big it is. I don't care. So gig workers, gig economy, and hence how do we teach them to do multiple things is going to be very important. And second, before I go to NEP, the second thing that I thought I should emphasize, and there is a big chapter in this book, I'm very fascinated by that, and again, congratulations to both of you. The social media and its impact on the youngsters. There is suddenly this need to have instant recognition, right? I can't wait for my 12 years to get my so-called, higher secondary education certificate or whatever it is. I need instant gratification. I get into university and I can't wait for 4 years for somebody to tell me whether I'm a graduate, I'm worth for something or not. And that is largely because there is a social media where you post something and then keep checking every 3rd second whether there is a like or whether there is somebody who's commented another thing. And if it doesn't happen, you are very dejected. I don't know, I don't understand, but that's how the reality is. So the universities should now teach what I call as emotional well-being. How do you tell these kids it's okay if there is no like that comes? That doesn't mean people don't like you or something like that. It is because they're taking their time and things of that kind. And the second point here is how can you be visible in the clutter? Today, though it is called social media, in my view, it has made more people unsocial, so to say, like, they stick to their device, they keep doing what they do. What earlier used to be a nice social gathering is not even happening because of this. So second point I want to make is teach them on how do you live in this world where there is an expectation that things should happen immediately and you should cut through the clutter and you should be seen. And there is nothing wrong in case something doesn't happen immediately and things like this. So the emotional quotient part. The third point, again, which was very well highlighted, so I'm not going to go deep in that, is this innovation, create any job, you can't do what was being done earlier. It doesn't matter what, it could be a routine, mundane job, it could be a hotshot investment banker doing something. It really doesn't matter. In any of the job, if you don't think out of the box, you don't come up with solutions that are, if you don't come up with solutions rather than just stating the problem and other things, you don't find a job there. Employers don't want them. So these are some of the things that I think the future, and I can go on, but I'll come back to what you asked. So the changes that are happening in the so-called real world, in the industry, in the civil society is telling. And sometimes when you are going through the change, you don't realize the impact of the change. I think we are going through the change. The impact and the pace of the change is so big that we'll not wait for decades to know it. We'll know it very fast, and that's going to happen fast. So what does that mean? The national education policy, I did very little, like, I'm so privileged that there was some inputs that I could give, but what national education policy says is something that is transformational. It is not something that was built on something earlier, but it says just look at this, what is called as a zero-based view. Look at what is required in future, right? And while doing this, you can't cut from the past. You need to build in the same system. I think like, I think Sujita, one of the speakers said, the teachers are such an important part, and teachers like me are students of the past. How do you use the same set of people to teach something that is so new that has not happened? So NEP talks about a fine balance of what is required in the future and how do you transition that from an existing system to go into the future. Like, for example, it talks about what is very important, which is multidisciplinary approach. Look at the audacity that somebody should have to say your IITs and IIMs and the IISCs, while they are very good, cannot be the universities of tomorrow because they are not focused on multiple disciplines. You go to an IIT, do you really get to do a minor, say, in fine arts? How many places do you get that? So NEP boldly says, unless you are getting a multidisciplinary approach, then you can't be called a university. Second, it says, the point that I just mentioned, don't wait for 4 years. If you want multiple entries and exit, give it to them. The university of future, not so far away, is going to be something that will give you something every year. The first year could be a certificate, second year could be a diploma, third could be a degree, fourth could be an advanced degree, and it goes on. So that is a big change that has come. And the third, it says, why are we, caught up in an assessment that is at least a century old? Why don't we get into applications of, whatever you have learned? You are as good as what you have learned. And I'm tempted to quote the ruler here who says, so how do you make sure that the learning is something that you can apply? That's what he says, and we need to go. So NEP talks about something that is more practical, and how do you put that in the assessment part of it so that you are assessed on the right things and not the rote way of memorizing and making people reproduce what they have memorized in some point. That's not going to help in the real life. So I know I'm taking a long time. Let me conclude by saying, and hence, if you look at what are the learnings for educational institutions, I think there needs to be a complete rethinking, a reimagination of how universities should function in future. I think there should be a lot more collaborative in three senses. One, with the industry and with the civil society. Are you a microcosm of the world outside, or are you living in your own cocoon? Do you reflect on what is required? So if you are teaching civil engineering, is it really what is happening outside? You're talking about, smart cities and many of those things. Is it what you're teaching? So that connect with the industry. Second, I think you need to collaborate with more institutions. So many things are happening outside. And today technology allows you to do that. So are you collaborating more and more and more with fellow educators so that you can? The third one is collaboration with other disciplines. That's what NEP also says. So if you are there is, in my view, in future, there's nothing going to be called, say, BE in Bachelor of Technology or Engineering in Electric or Electronics. And that actually gives a very narrow approach to engineering, or a BSc in Physics. So how do you make sure that multiple disciplines, multiple skill sets are going to be a part of what you learn? So these collaborations, in my view, are going to define learning in higher education institutions. And I believe the national education policy is the first step towards making it happen. And this is important because we are going through the demographic bulge right now. And the economist says in 2018 or 19 is when India has entered into demographic bulge. For the next 3-4 decades, this is going to define how good or how big the Indian economy and the Indian youth are going to perform in the world stage. Let me pause there. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Pattabhi and Anbu. My pleasure. And once again, many, many congrats for this book. For all those who are in the audience, I would urge them to either win this in the one that is going to happen now or buy it. Please read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. That was very well put. Rashmi, you're there? There's a question from the audience for you.
Yeah.
Rashmi, there's a question from the audience from you. This is from...
Yeah.
One second, I just missed the name. Okay, it's from a couple of people there. Question is, will reading textbooks help us become good entrepreneurs?
I don't think reading textbooks will help you become good at anything. I mean, it's the basic building block, but then you have to actually go out there and do something. I mean, if you're going to be an engineer, you have to work with your hands in the workshop. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you should start a small business of your own. Like even during a summer vacation, you could have a small, you could start a cake business, for example. Now in America, for example, it is very common for the young children to be told that, okay, in summer vacation, you can stand outside your house and sell lemonade. They don't make a lot of money doing that, but they learn what it is like to do a business. They may only earn $5, $10, but you have to make the product, you have to sell it, you have to keep it cold, you have to talk to customers. So I think especially entrepreneurship has to be a very practical subject. It has to be something which gives you that confidence that, look, it's not rocket science. If I come up with something which is of use to other people, they'll buy it from me. And then I have to find a way to make it profitable. And then I have to find a way to get other people to join me so that I can make it bigger. But, it's something that all of you can just do, as students, as even if you're working somewhere, you can run a small business on a weekend. So I really don't think textbooks are necessary. Yes, mentorship is helpful. If you want to grow your business, sometimes it helps to have a perspective from people who've already done it, who can guide you a little. But more than textbooks, I would advise you to read the life stories of various entrepreneurs, which, you can also watch their videos on YouTube. And that also provides a lot of guidance and inspiration.
And then also actually go and do some little work, like you said. All right.
Yes.
Sujit, this is a question from Avinash. He says that in the past, in the pre-pandemic, there were a lot of cultural events. It helped bonding, it helped teamwork. Teamwork was a reference that Vijay Kumar had also made. And he said post-pandemic, with colleges being closed for almost now 1.5, 2 years, this is going to come down. I was reminded of what you said about there being lesser of colleges. So how will you build teamwork if bulk of that is going to happen through Unacademy, Khan Academy, and their likes?
So I sincerely hope that the worst is over. And in the last 1.5 years, there has been a good number of institutions. I mean, I don't think the number of webinars that colleges have organized, they would have done it in their lifetime of their existence. So I think the number of events, in fact, has gone up higher, and students have grabbed that opportunity. And leaders, who do we define as leaders? Leaders are ones who see every problem as an opportunity. So yeah, the physical event has been reduced in the last 1.5 years, but if the worst is over, I think there are opportunities for you to exhibit more of that in near future. Having said that, I think the real challenge is when one door is shut, you look for other opportunities. And that was this medium of online media, right? And there are a good number of students who picked up these skills, ran sessions for their colleges, honed their leadership skills and stuff like that. I don't think that was really a big deal, in my opinion, Pattabhi. But yes, I think the proximity of meeting colleagues, coming physically together, I think that has been grossly missed. And I really feel sorry for the current third year and fourth year who literally their years have been whitewashed, right? or for the first and second year. So I sincerely hope that whatever limited time that they have in college, they put this to best use as much as they can.
All right. Vijay Kumar, you are there? All right. Until Vijay comes up, maybe I'll ask this question to Narayanan. Yeah, Vijay Kumar is there. Narayanan, I'll put that question and then come to you.
Sorry, I lost the network, Patabi. Yeah.
Vijay Kumar, your views on generation gap. Now, the new recruits are going to be easily many, many years younger than us. Is there a what is the kind of generation gap that we are seeing from the time when you first went and worked, when you had your first boss, compared to the boys who are coming today? How do they respond to the bosses? How do they respond to work? Is there a big gap?
Patabi, it's a very nice question. In fact, the gap certainly exists, but I think the secret is how we are able to understand the next generation and embrace them. Let me give a very simple example. Both of us have been teaching for quite some time. I recall when I started teaching way back in 90s to the time of 2010, 2015 and all. If you look at the students' behavioral pattern, there is a substantial change. But what I've noticed is that while their personal behavior, personal thinking looks a little different from the way we have been brought up, sometimes maybe it's a reflection of probably the envy that we did not have this kind of an opportunity or this kind of a freedom or this kind of scale of thinking. Probably sometimes it is that. But otherwise, I think more than the students actually adjusting, I think it's all about the senior people developing capabilities to understand the younger generation. If you recall, there used to be an ad, I don't know if it's an Airtel ad or whose ad, where the son is lying on this couch, on the sofa. The father says, pay the electricity bill. This guy just nods his head. And father comes back after a few minutes and says, what have you done? You have not gone it to pay. He says, it's done, chill. So in my generation, my father would have got upset if I was lying on the couch and given this kind of a response. But in this generation, the child does not mean any offense. It does not mean any offense either with his personal attire or with the way he sits or the way he responds. It doesn't mean any disrespect. I've spent time with a lot of these youngsters, and I find many times, with due respects, parents misunderstanding the children. They actually don't mean any disrespect. It's just that we need to align ourselves to the way these children have been brought up. For the simple reason that, Patabi, when you and I grew up, we grew up in a very constrained environment. So for us, by the time we understood what freedom is and all, it was probably past our 30s. But the current generation of children have experienced freedom at a very young age, whether it is expressing themselves or trying to be themselves rather than pretend to be somebody else. I think that's a shift which is there. I don't think we should attempt to change them. Rather, we should look at how we can adapt ourselves to understand their traits. I think that's an important thing we need to do as senior people. That's my response on this, Patabi.
Fair enough. Narayanan, I'll take the same question to you. I'm not too sure whether I 100% understood what Vijay Kumar said, not in what he said, but my sense is that he was talking largely about parent, teacher, student, son. Am I right?
Yes, Patabi. And also as an organization, the employers, senior people, they need to understand.
All right, then that is fine. Then I will move out of that question. Narayanan, I'll ask you a very different question. What is the first thing that you tell a fresh recruit when he comes to your organization? It could be a graduate if you recruit graduates. It could be an MBA, it could be a CA, it could be a whoever. What is the first thing that you will tell them when you meet them?
So that's a good question. And there is something that we do even on a structured basis. But I always thought, and this is, while a lot has changed in management consulting, the management consulting that we used to do 25 years back when I started this career to now is completely different. If somebody were to apply the same thing that we were, it will not even work. But there are certain things that have not changed, and that is what I keep telling the graduates when they join our organization. Three things, if I can list, not one. One, first is curiosity. In consulting, and I guess in many professions, many knowledge-based professions, which is what is going to be dominant, if you're not curious enough to learn, right, that would also mean a bit of unlearning and relearning. I don't think there is a future. Those who have stopped learning, those who don't have the curiosity to know, and you also use this term in consulting very often, coming up the learning curve very quickly. So what does that mean? Like, things are changing so rapidly with clients. If there are two people, one takes just a day or two to quickly get up to speed as to what's happening, but the other is stuck in the past, obviously the first one succeeds. That's one. The second quality that I always insist on people who join consulting, and again, reasonably good for knowledge-based organization, is attitude. Gone are those days where I say that, define my workspace. I will do only this. Oh, I was not told about this, or I did exactly what you said. That doesn't work. So those who take ownership at all levels, you could be a fresher who's just joined, like in our parlance, we call them analysts and consultants. Or you could be like a partner who's running a part of the business. It doesn't matter, like the ownership that you take, the attitude that you have towards work, that piece of work that you own, till as long as you are part of the job is important. And that I see as a refreshingly good quality that today's youngsters have. They're very clear, like, I might be here for a few months to a few years, but in those few months, few hours, few years, whatever it is, I'll give the best. And I'm ready to do whatever it takes for the result-oriented approach that I have. The third one would be a bit more specific to our kind of profession, is your ability to deliver. How do you communicate? You might know a hell of a lot of things, but have you communicated that? And when I say that, it is different. We use very famously what is called as an elevator speech. Imagine you are in the elevator with the CEO for 2 minutes, very famous. How do you communicate? You have so many things to say, but as against you are giving a lecture, you are writing a report, that needs to be very different. So your ability to communicate and be very effective in the communication is going to be important. So in my view, the curiosity element to learn, and second, the right attitude, and third, your ability to communicate and deliver are the three things that I would think the youngsters today should know for any knowledge-based profession.
That's great. Rashmi, I have a question for you. I think in our times, the essential success path used to be that the guys go to the IIT, then they go to the IIM, then they go work in multinational corporations and maybe work abroad. Now, in the many colleges that you talk, in the many colleges where you deliver your motivational talks, are today's generation also defining their success path in much the same way?
I think it's the influence of the parents, because a lot of students are still looking at that old path. They want a certainty that ye main karun to I will get this result. The other paths are also available, but they are not so clear. They are not so certain. So there is a hesitation, and in some cases, it's not even the parents who are holding them back. Sometimes the parents are giving all the freedom, but the student is a bit uncertain because he or she has seen that other path which the parents took and it was a success. So the old way is changing, but the new way hasn't really become very crystallized, and also because the colleges offer the placement option, so therefore it is an easy hanging fruit. You just say, okay, I'll take a job. Fir nahi acha laga, maybe I'll do an MBA, or I'll go abroad, I'll do something. So they keep postponing that decision on what they want to do in life. So I really tell them that, you have to be a storyteller of your own, life story. You have to create your own destiny, your own story. It's not like good enough if somebody else is holding that pen, whether it's your parents or it's society or it's, what the media says. Those things are just things you take in as an influence, and then you decide where you want to go. And that's where I say the self-belief matters a lot, because somehow they always feel ki, how can I not take the placement? So this thing called placement, which we're offering as a sort of a, a completion of the educational journey, in some ways is kind of just restricting the options of students because they can easily get that. So I honestly think that we should not have that kind of, we should not give everything on a platter. I think there should be alternative routes also, which are given equal importance. And also, if you try and you fail, it's not the end of the world. Suppose you start something of your own, you don't succeed. It's not that you will not get a job today. Even that experience matters. There will be some other big startup which will employ you for a couple of years, and again you can try.
But is that a realization that can actually come to a 20-something person? It's all right when one has worked 15 years and then says, okay,
well, frankly, what I did when I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, I didn't take the placement. I dropped out of the placement. I was 21 years old at that time. And I thought that this is a future ki aage log karenge hi nahi. Why should they, if I know that I'm not made for these corporate jobs, why should I waste 15 years of my life doing that and then, realize that one day a bulb will go off in my mind. So I just felt I don't want to waste the best years of my life in some corporate boardroom, selling some Nirma or surf or whatever. So if you know that at the beginning, then don't take that path. And there are plenty of people who know that, but they still postpone this decision thinking that after 5 years, I'll be older and wiser. But actually what happens is you are more rigid and you're even more afraid, especially if you have taken EMI. I have always told my students that if you take an EMI for a house or a car or whatever, then you forget about doing anything different in life, because that is such a big pressure on your head that you cannot take a leap forward and try something which is not going to give you immediate return. Okay. Yeah.
I like that point that you said about Nirma, because I used to tell my cousins, there's a cousin, there are many, one of them studied at IIT, went to IIM, and then joined one of those pharma companies and was busy selling contact lenses. I said, boss, to sell contact lenses, why do you go to IIT IIM? So I'm able to relate to what you're saying. I think we have only 6-7 minutes left because it's good to end on time in as much as it is good to start on time. So I will first ask one of my last questions. Same question to all four of you. We'll possibly start with Vijay Kumar. Vijay, if you were to go back in age, if you were to go back to the start of your career, when you came out of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and if you were to start your career now, if you were to go back in time that way, what would you want to do with the advantage of hindsight that you've had? Would you still like to do the same things that you did?
Yeah,
for example, if you ask me, I would say, no, I don't want to go and teach. If you ask me, I will say,
for me, teaching was an accident, which is a little later, but I wanted to be in investment banking, and I was a little hesitant at that time to relocate to Mumbai. And if I were to restart my career now, I wouldn't hesitate. I would start my career in Mumbai. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, no other difference.
Sujit?
I wouldn't change one bit of what I've done. I would want to redo the same thing, because I always believe that I got that there are a lot of things which you said, right? That is that you get at 18. If I got it earlier, there are books around topics like that. I got a brilliant advice at 18 by my school principal. She simply said, play to your strengths, and I've always done that. So I wouldn't change one bit.
There is something that you want to do which you have not been able to do because you've been busy with many things?
Yeah, the only probably a tempting offer that I didn't take up was to become a radio jockey with Radio Mirchi way back in 2004. And I always say that there is a new term called multi-potentialite. Your interest lies in different areas. So today I wear a corporate hat. I also run an NGO. Probably an RJ would have been a good value addition in between, but I don't think I would have changed anything at all.
I think given your status, standing, and contacts, you can still go do RJ for a week. There will be a lot. Radio Mirchi will be very happy to have you there.
Let's hope so.
Rashmi?
Yeah, I would be kinder to myself. I think I used to take a lot of stress and feel I haven't done enough. And I would have liked to have discovered yoga and meditation at a much younger age and, practice those things so that I could deal with all the stress and strain of life, which I learned over time. But I think it's something we should incorporate from a young age. In fact, it should be taught in schools and colleges as a very, basic requirement of emotional health. So I wish that I had incorporated those things right from, college itself.
Narayanan, before I put that question to you, I want to put that question to Dr. Anbu Thambi. Anbu, what would you have done here if you had to start all over again?
Oh, I wanted to be an engineer at that point of time. All TCS cognizance were enticing me, because when I passed out, if I was thinking, since I was not an engineer, I did not get an opportunity to go and work with all these big companies. Honestly, I was thinking I should work with companies like TCS, Wipro, Cognizance, and become a big man in IT. If there was a chance, I would have done that.
So if you now go back in time, you would want to do that?
I may still want to do it.
Narayanan, final words to you. Final words to you.
I said think twice.
Okay.
It's always the grass on the other side is always greener. No? Yeah, Narayanan.
So it's very interesting. I started my career I did what perhaps Anbu wanted to do. I became an engineer, and I started my career with CMCs. This is way back in early 90s, which was one of the most exciting tech firms in that time. I would have done exactly the same, but I would not have done one thing that I did in between. I did my management education and switched to consulting. Maybe I wouldn't have done that. Given a chance, I would have stayed in technology. I think I would have made a far bigger difference had I stuck to technology and what technology could have done. So that perhaps is the only small change.
Are you saying you would not have gone to IIM? Are you by any chance saying that?
See, it's nothing to do against IIMs. I'm immensely proud of my background. But all I'm saying is technology is so exciting. I shifted path. And then went into the management consulting world. If I had stuck to technology with the kind of passion I had, I would have perhaps done better. So, and given the changes that have happened now, look at the digital technologies that are ruling the world today. We thought about AI way back in mid-90s in CMC, and I don't want to take much time on that. But had I continued on that, I thought one wishes in hindsight, everybody is wiser, right?
True. Thank you all very much. I think to me, it was very, very happy hosting, anchoring this program. To the audience, I must tell you that we can always keep discussing, but at some particular point in time, it's good to draw a line. Thank you very much, Narayan. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Rashmi. And thank you, Sujit, for being here today and giving forth your views. Thanks a lot. And it's back to Anbu Thambi.
Thank you so much to all the panelists, and in spite of your busy schedules and in spite of holiday, you all have been with us the entire show. And let me thank our chairman, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, for spending his good time and giving a keynote. And I thank all four of you, and including Mr. Patabi, who hosted this in a very, very dynamic way in his own style, because he has his own style to bring out the best out of every panelist. And I don't know whether I can make this statement. I was really confused whom should I call as a moderator, because I've worked with all of you, and all of you have been moderators, and you have been running big panels. And suddenly when you are speakers, then I thought, it's whom to get as a moderator. Then we thought, Mr. Patabi would be better, because he'll be able to coordinate with all of you and get the best of the inputs to come outside. So thank you very much, all of you. And I thank all the participants. While we had a lot of participants join, if you look at most of them, almost 95% of them attended the full session. I think in online session, typically one of my other colleagues says, people come in and half of them go in the mid of the session, etc. But today I could witness, we had all 600 attending, 10 or 20 dropouts. Otherwise, everyone attended the entire session. I think thanks to the entire panelists here, and to making the session so very vibrant. I thank you very much, all the participants. I could see a lot of messages from principals and few chairmen. Now, I don't want to call out names of people, but thank you so much for witnessing the book launch and being part of this Educator Conclave. And thank you very much from ICT Academy, and behalf of Patabi and myself, I thank all of you for joining this session. So once again, I thank all the participants, and just to indicate there is a note on this. 40 books. We will ensure after this session there is a the attendance check will be made by our team, and for all educators, there whoever has attended the full session, there will be a lucky draw where 40 of you will get the book hand delivered at your colleges in the coming week as soon as you are back from holidays. So thank you very much to all of you. See you once again in the next session. Some other session will be used. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Sujit sir. Thank you, Mr. Narayan. Thank you, MPV sir. And finally, thanks, Patabi sir.